December 1st. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. The Gift of the Magi, from the story by O. Henry. $1.87, that was all, and 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time. 3 times Della counted it. $1.87, and the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl, so Della did it. When Della finished her cry, she attended to her cheeks with a powder puff. She stood by the window and looked out sadly. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim, her Jim. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him, something fine and rare and sterling, a gift near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. Suddenly, she whirled from the window and stood before the looking glass. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall into its full length. Now there were 2 possessions to the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. She did it up again nervously and quickly. Once she faltered for a minute and stood still while a tear or 2 splashed on the warm red carpet. On went her old brown jacket, on went her old brown hat, and with a whirl of skirts and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street. Where she stopped, the sign read, Madame Sofronie, hair goods of all kinds. 1 flight up, Della ran, and collected herself, panting. "Will you buy my hair?" asked Della. "I buy hair," said Madame. "Take off your hat and let's have a sight of it." Down rippled the brown cascade. $20, said Madame, lifting the mass with a practiced hand. "Give it to me quick," said Della. Oh, the next 2 hours were rosy as she ransacked the stores for Jim's present. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. There was no other like it in any of the stores, and she had turned all of them inside out. It was a platinum watch chain, simple in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone and not by ornamentation, as all good things should do. It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it must be Jim's. Quietness and value, the description applied to both. $21 they took from her for it, and she hurried home with the 87 cents. With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. Grand as the watch was, he sometimes looked at it on the sly on account of the old leather strap he used in place of a chain. When Della reached home, she got out her curling irons and went to work. Within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a schoolboy. She looked at her reflection in the mirror long, carefully, and critically. "If Jim doesn't kill me," she said to herself, "before he takes a second look at me. But what could I do with $1.87? Jim was never late. Della held the watch chain in her hand. She heard his step on the stair, and she turned white for just a moment. She had a habit of saying little silent prayers about the simplest everyday things, and now she whispered, "Please, God, make him think I'm still pretty." The door opened, and Jim stepped in and closed it. He looked thin and very serious. Poor fellow. He was only 22, and to be burdened with a family. He needed a new overcoat, and he was without gloves. Jim's eyes were fixed on Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her. "Jim, darling," she cried, "don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold it because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. It'll grow out again. You won't mind, will you? I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I've got for you." "You've cut off your hair?" asked Jim, as if he had not arrived at that fact yet. "Cut it off and sold it," said Della. "Don't you like me just as well, anyhow? I'm me without my hair, aren't I? Jim looked around the room curiously. You say your hair is gone? You needn't look for it, said Della. It's sold and gone, I tell you. Be good to me for it went for you. Out of his trance, Jim seemed to quickly wake. He enfolded his Della in his arms, then drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it upon the table. Don't make any mistake, Dell, he said, about me. I don't think there's anything in the way of a haircut or a shave or shampoo that could make me like my girl any less. But if you'll unwrap the package, you may see why you had me going for a while at first. White fingers tore at the string and paper, and then an ecstatic scream of joy, and then, alas, a quick, feminine change to tears and wails, necessitating all of Jim's comforting powers. For there lay the combs, the set of combs that Della had wanted for so long. Beautiful combs, pure tortoiseshell with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in the beautiful, vanished hair. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had yearned for them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers. But the hair was gone. She hugged them to her, and at length was able to look up with a smile and say, My hair grows so fast, Jim. And then Della leaped up and cried, Oh, oh! Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him eagerly upon her palm. The precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of her own bright spirit. Isn't it dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch, I want to see how it looks on it. Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled. Dell, he said, let's put our Christmas presents away and keep them for a while. They're too nice to use just now. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. And now suppose you put dinner on. $8 a week or $1 million a year. What's the difference? The Magi, as you know, were wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of two foolish children, who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But, in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and received gifts such as they are wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the Magi.